Okay, these are my West Virginia University complaints, and there's a lot of them. So I put in the words because I had to do an interim suspension appeal because I basically got called to student conduct 6 times, and I'm going to do another video about how uh, every time I'm reported for anything, whether it's student conduct or PO or Microsoft account, every time I'm reported for something, it's automatic punishment, automatic disciplined whenever I'm reported. So I would never report anyone to anywhere because, especially if it's due to frustration for not being accommodated, I would be understanding, which would de-escalate the situation. So basically, this is my interim suspension appeal to the Dean of Students. Um, yeah, so interim suspension appeal. Hi, my name is so forth. I would like to start by addressing the urgency of this appeal, going through as fast as possible. I am in 12 credits this summer, and 6 of them are in the first 3 weeks. So I'm in 2 3-week courses. And they're not letting me go to my courses until my interim suspension is appealed. So I'm currently missing a class, and I'll go through this. Um, I can't go to my courses until they accept my appeal, and I'm in 3-week courses, and I'm taking maximum credits. I'll go through it. Um, I'm in 12 credits this summer. 6 of them are first 3 weeks. I've been set to graduate in December 2019. Ever since I transferred here in August 2018, each day of my 3-week classes being missed is an entire week, as there are only 15 classes. If you think you are going to accept my appeal, then I would like you to do so as soon as possible for the following reasons. I transferred here with a 162 over 81, 2.0 GPA exactly. From Northern Virginia Community College, there was only a handful of 2.5 GPA guaranteed admission schools, only a handful of 2.5s, and West Virginia University was the only 2.0 option. I'm moving to Tashkent in 2021, where I lived for 2 years beforehand, where when I get my Master's of Elementary Education. The Bachelor's of Elementary Education program was a 2.75 admission, even though West Virginia University was a 2.0. But they did have a 2.0 option for me, which was the Regents RBA, accelerated into MAC Elementary Education. Master's Elementary RBA accelerated Master's Elementary Education. Bachelor Elementary Education was going to be 94 credits, and the RBA accelerated MAC was 4 semesters for RBA, 4 semesters for Masters. This pushed my professional career ahead by an entire school year. I'm down to $300 as my mom is trying to switch insurances with a restraining order on me, car insurances with a restraining order on me, so I can't contact her or get money from her for rent. And my car is about to get collected with a court order, while my PO is telling me to come drive 4 hours to talk about the same thing I'm talking about every day with student conduct and UPD when we could just do it over the phone, and I can't do it because I don't have the funds, and my car's about to get taken away. So I can't contact her to get my money for rent, and my car is about to get collected with a court order because she can't wait another month for me to get my FAFSA refund, which I go over in my FAFSA complaints video. And so I can have enough money to get the inspection sticker that's required to change insurances. And I'm too busy to drive 4 hours of Virginia to get an inspection, as my summer courses are 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. My rent is due June 1st. I do not have the money for it because they took away my FAFSA on the 10th of this month. I appealed it on the 15th. They took it away because of my overall completion rate, even though I have over a 3.7 since I transferred and started using FAFSA. I didn't even use FAFSA in community college, and they're still making me appeal. I sent them my grades in the fall and spring, and they denied it and are making me explain my personal difficulties in community college, which quite frankly is none of their business. The reason I was called in today was because of 2 other appeals. This is an appeal for interim suspension, and there's a grade appeal, and there's a FAFSA appeal. The receptionist at the Mountaineer Hub said she couldn't relay a message to the reviewers for me, as she was making guarantees that it wouldn't speed up the process when that wasn't written anywhere. And I called her out on it, causing her to be stubborn. Basically, she's telling me things that aren't facts, and she's focusing. She then said it's not her job to relay messages, and I told her job is to accommodate me as a student and customer of West Virginia University rather than focusing on hanging up the phone, because I was confident that if they were aware that a student had rent due June 1st, they would accept the appeal or earlier than the 2-week deadline. When there's it's going to take 2 weeks, and it's going to take another 3 to 5 business days to go through. As all deadlines, it seems, are when everything goes through at WVU, because they don't complete things before deadlines to speed things up. Neither is the VA. I should do an entire video on the VA taking so long. I was not accommodated that day, and I was accommodated in future days, and even had another receptionist put notes on my file that mine was urgent because rent was due. And then my other appeal was my grade appeal. I had a 91.5 in my curriculum instruction 426 class last semester with Dr. Bolyard. I ended up with a 88.5 from a 91.5 after the final assignment, where I got a 58 out of 80 because the final assignment consisted of 3 procedures for prompts, but did not include the prompts. I emailed her before it was due, but after the final class, to send me the 3 prompts. She didn't. Instead, all she told me was to check eCampus. Fast forward 1 week when grades go through, I ask her about my final assignment grade, and she tells me that it wasn't on eCampus. So I told her to give me the prompts, and then she said check eCampus, and then she tells me later, after the grades are due, that it wasn't on eCampus, it was in a handout. And the only handout that she didn't collect was a handout with 3 word problems on it, so I assumed it was those 3 problems. I'm still not aware of what the 3 prompts are that I should have used. She gave me a 58 out of 80 because of wrong prompts, which landed me a B. I emailed Mr. Stack, and he relayed my email to Mr. Niederhauser for appeal after reviewing it. I also messaged Mr. Niederhauser myself last week, and I told him it should already say B+ and not B due to it being an 88.5. And then my appeal is to change it from a B+ to an A. So it should already say B+ because it's an 88.5 even though it says B, and that my appeal is for the final assignment to change it from a B+ to an A, which is the same thing Mr. Stack emailed him, or should have emailed him. If he didn't, then I have a complaint on Mr. Stack. A week goes by as literally every professional I come into contact with fails to accommodate me. A week goes by and literally every professional I come into contact with fails to accommodate me. So I express my frustration to Mr. Niederhauser and ask him what his problem is and why he isn't responding, as well as letting him know that I will not stand for this type of behavior. He messaged me within 12 hours after not responding to the essay that I wrote him the week prior, and he says, all he says is, your appeal to change your grade from a B to a B+ has been denied. If you hooked him up to a polygraph and asked him if he was getting off on me in this response, it would show that he was. He did not acknowledge my final assignment situation, and he actually added to that comment. He did not acknowledge my final assignment situation, which Mr. Stack and I should have both messaged him, and actually added to the comment which was getting off on me, which was already subtly getting off on me, with an email response trying to teach me a lesson, threatening my existence as a student at West Virginia University by telling me to reformat my emails to his liking after he had gotten off on me in his first response. I subsequently resent my situation and called him out on exactly what he was doing and what he was not doing. After I resent my situation, he's wasting my time making me type it again. I would also like to say that I was on the phone prior to my student conduct meeting that I would not be suspended today, which is why I did not reschedule. which I've done in the past for 2 weeks from now, when I would have my 6 credits, so my educational plan isn't postponed another year. So they told me I wasn't going to be suspended today. That's why I came in instead of rescheduling it after I had completed my 2 3-week courses. And yeah, and I was suspended, interim suspension. And I was tricked and lied to today. I was told I would not be suspended today, and I was. I was also not warned that I would be dropped from my classes if I didn't let someone have their way with me again. As I'm trying to walk around not being gotten off on, or I would lose respect for myself. In addition, I would like to say that every time I've been sent to student conduct was due to my response for someone getting off on me and not accommodating me when I was seeking their service. I'm a victim in all of these situations, and if this is an ongoing trend of student responses, then you need to acknowledge it. If this is an ongoing trend of student responses, then you need to acknowledge it. You need to keep a tab on how many students certain employees are sending the student conduct, and how many of those students share the same story of torment on top of lack of accommodation. If another student isn't responded to in a week by Mr. Niederhauser in the future, then Mr. Niederhauser responds within 12 hours of receiving the second email that expresses students' frustrations with the understandable frustrations with the lack of response, provoking a negative response of that student with the double email that was blatantly subtle and getting off on me, which I consider harassment. And I found out today that it's not harassing, it's the person's interpretation. And I consider all this harassment, subtle harassment. Then I expect you to notice the trend and confront him and do something about it. So a future student and customer of West Virginia University who is only being kept afloat by his student loans and will be in a shelter because his mom has a restraining order against him if he's kicked out for not taking things on the chin, and I will not have another university to go to because he does not have a 2.5, and will not have another university to go to because he does not have a 2.5 after getting 3 Bs, including an 89.25, 88.5. So I won't have another university to go to because I don't yet have a 2.5. Doesn't have their existence as a West Virginia University student, an apartment dweller, threatened as I have a pet, and will not be kicked out or even suspended for this, threatening my existence as an apartment dweller. I also like to point out that every time I was a victim, every single time I was sent to student conduct, I would also like to point out that every time I was a victim, every single time I was sent to student conduct before this point as well. Last fall, I was sent to student conduct by the Star Wars Club and the Aeronautical Club. Star Wars Club and the Aeronautical Club last fall. I do not know if this was discrimination due to my last name, but I had a 50-message email exchange in a thread with 6 people involved with the Aeronautical Club, as 2 of them ignored my situation and allowed the other 4 to get off on me for 50 emails. My first email read, "Meeting times, email list." And the president of the Aeronautical Club responded that he wasn't aware to which club I was referring to. I said meeting times, email list, and the president of the Aeronautical Club responded he wasn't aware to which club I was referring to, asking me to reformat my email professionally for him, which set me off for a list of reasons. I ended up wasting hours writing essays with homework due before classes, before exams, of what they were doing and not doing, then re-requesting those 2 things every single time for 50 messages. Dealing with 4 people getting off on me, provoking negative reactions out of me, having their way with me with detrimental intent, getting off on me with negative emotions, orchestrating what I'm doing, not looking out for my well-being, threatening my existence as West Virginia University student and apartment dweller, wasting my time, not accommodating me, making things worse for me, among other reasons, when I had planned to be in these clubs before I even transferred to university for resume opportunities. I planned to be in these clubs even before I transferred to university. If you get any more students complaining about something like this, it would be easy to solve by sending these clubs a message in the beginning of the semester to accommodate students who asked to be added to the email list and to be sent meeting times in the very first response. I was a victim in this situation, and it took them 50 emails to get the response they needed to send me to student conduct, which is what they were trying to do, which is something I will never succumb to, as I have respect for myself. The next time I was called into student conduct is when I had tediously gotten permission for 7 of 8 international school conference workshops, and the executive director of ASSA South America asked a question that was already answered in the very first line of the long email that I sent him in his first response. I then told him that he obviously didn't read my first message because he left my request unacknowledged, left all 5 of my questions unanswered, on top of asking a question that he already had the answer to. And he responded that my response was disrespectful when all I said, you obviously didn't read my first message, and that he would be ceasing communication with me. I remained professional after he ceased communication with me, which is something he does not have the right to do even as an executive director, as he was making a stubborn individual executive, blatantly offended decision that he is not in a position to make. I did not respond. Stubborn individual, blatantly offended executive decision that he's not in a position to make. So there's just one person who's ruining my resume opportunities for me, and I can't do anything about it. I did not even respond to him. I waited until they updated their website and signed up myself, as they did have a student non-member option for me, which is all they had to respond with in the first place to fully accommodate me. I then buy my flights, and a few weeks go by, and then I get an email. Mind you, I buy flights Warsaw to Bangkok to Santiago back home, and I have those were the spring ones, and I buy my flights for that one, and I buy my Hanover flight, and I actually got the Hanover one, and then I buy my flights a few weeks ago, go by, and then I email him. And then I get an email from him saying he canceled my opportunity. After this is the second time he had gotten off on me, I provided the negative response he was looking for, which he immediately relayed to all 8 international school associations who followed suit in terminating my resume opportunities. Had permission for 7 of 8, was working on the Africa one, and then this guy takes away all my resume opportunities. I'm then sitting here canceling hotels and ended up with 4 $200 cancellation fees and 4 flights that were non-refundable because Priceline told me to call Alliance Travel Protection Agency because I purchased the Alliance travel insurance with my flights, and Priceline doesn't handle refunds, so they told me to contact Alliance. And then Alliance told me I could not submit a request for a refund until I provided 2 things: proof of getting permission for the conference, then buying my flights, then getting my opportunities revoked in chronological order, as well as the cancellation number, all of which I did, all to be denied of my refund due to the fact that my situation doesn't fall under their list of reasons for a refund. So they denied me because my situation, they have a list of reasons for a refund, and my very complicated situation doesn't fall under that list. And that's it's a subtle scam. It's actually a team scam between Priceline and Alliance, because I found out after that once a flight is canceled, which Alliance forced me to do, it cannot be redeemed back with Priceline. So I was out my flights and my money due to that scam. So I couldn't still go, even though it was unrefundable, and I couldn't still go and see if they'd kick me out in person of the hotel, because Alliance forced me to cancel, and Priceline says once you cancel, you can't get it back, and it cannot be redeemed. So I was out my flights and my money due to that subtle scam. I kept my Eastern Europe flight because that's where I grew up, basically, Eastern Europe flight, because they did not refund me the conference. But because there's the conference fees, the hotel fees, and the flights fees, and I got refunded everything in terms of conferences, and except Eastern Europe. But they did tell me not to attend, and I switched my flight from Warsaw to Bangkok to Warsaw back home, which cost money as well. I then bailed on the idea of showing up and having them kick me out to my face after flying over there because the entire situation was so demotivating. So I'm laying here with my flight, and I just decide that fuck these dudes, I hate them, and I'm gonna take them to court and say all this and get all my money back and apply statutes to make sure it doesn't happen again to a future upcoming and aspiring international school teacher. So I did not attempt to get my refund on my entire Eastern Europe trip, which I had a hotel booked, on top of the $1,000 worth of cancellation and flight change fees, on top of the Priceline scam with Alliance with my non-refundable flights. I got a cease and desist from ASSA and its executive director, and was contacting all 8 of the other international school organizations to back me up, and nobody would, which banked me 6 more cease and desists, including International School Services, who's supposed to be hiring me in 2 years. I will be taking every organization in this situation to court, and they're going to be flying me out there business class 2020, and there's going to be statutes applied so this doesn't happen to a future upcoming international school teacher. And yeah, and then there's the people giving me cease and desist, Department of State, or Office of Overseas Schools, in the Bureau of Diplomatic Security in the Department of State. And I'm going to do a VA complaint, and I'm going to do a Department of State complaint. Anyway, Prunty and Bolliard sent me to student conduct the next 2 times, but I will not go into further details about them. I explained the Bolliard situation already with 88.5, B plus A situation, and I ended up with an A in Prunty's course. I went over Prunty's course situation in my FAFSA, where there's like 6 instances, and she decided against me all 6 times. And I was sent to student conduct to them, but I wasn't harassing them. All I said was, don't send me to student conduct, because I have 2 strikes, and they did. And next thing, communications department reported me as well when I went to express my frustrations that they did not post the due dates on the 7 extra credit opportunities for all communication classes that were on their billboards. So they had 7 surveys, extra credit opportunities on their billboard, and they didn't have due dates on them. I missed out on 14 points of extra credit, which sealed the deal on my 3rd B last semester in family communication. Their reasoning was that WVU Qualtrics, the company who does the surveys, only allows a certain number of participants, so it's first come, first serve. I told them a few things. The first thing is that a limited number of participants for a survey study does not make sense. How are you going to do a college survey and limit the number of participants? Second thing is that they should put the due dates on each sheet so that students in the future don't expect 14 points of extra credit on their grade like I did when I tried to do those surveys on week 13. The third thing, first thing, doesn't make sense that surveys have limited participants, especially college study. Second thing, they should put the due dates on it so a student doesn't miss out on 14 points of extra credit like they expected when they checked at week 13 of 16 and the surveys are deactivated. And third thing is that they should contact Qualtrics and tell them to either make it so there's an unlimited number of participants or tell their students the due dates and that there are a limited number of participants so the surveys could close early. So the students are aware of this. The next thing I pointed out is that they are sacrificing students' grades to teach them a lesson about completing extra credit assignments as early as possible, which is not good. Teaching people a lesson, sacrificing their grade to teach them a lesson to do extra credit assignments early is not a good thing. And I would not succumb to that if I was part of the communication. If I was part of the communication department, I would quit. I would end up fired or quit in my efforts to make sure that this doesn't happen again for all of these reasons, for all of these reports. And I would never send someone to student conduct or call their PO if their frustration is understandable. And that I will be here. I'd also told them I'll be here the next 2 semesters to make sure they do everything I just said. And they said that that was harassing them, which gave me another student conduct visit. I said I was going to be here summer, fall. I was going to make sure that they did everything I just said. So students aren't fucked. Additionally, I filed 6 of my 10 complaints and have not received any responses. I'm going to file this one as 10 of my 10 complaints. As an entire complaint, and I'm probably not going to get a response to this one either. Well, you get a complaint against you and you're fucked. You file a complaint and nothing happens. That's an ongoing trend everywhere. And I filed 6 of my 10 complaints, have not gotten a response, including the fact that Mr. Stack, the person who reviews grade appeals, sent me a very monotonous message that seemed like he filled in words on a template because it did not acknowledge my grade appeal situation that's complicated one bit. And I'm concerned that he did not relay all that he should have to Mr. Niederhauser, who I cannot contact anymore, and he's the only person who can solve my grade appeal. Like, I can't get this job with a cease and desist if these guys are supposed to hire me, and I can't get my grade appealed if this guy has a restraining order on me, or if this guy has a harassment warning on me, who I cannot contact anymore. When he harassed me first, I wonder what would happen if I called 911 or UPD on this guy who's subtly getting off on me, that I consider subtle harassment. Because I learned today that it's not about your interpretation of harassment, it's about the recipient's. And I'm the recipient of I was the recipient of his subtle harassment before I retaliated with blatant harassment, calling him out. Can't contact anymore is the only person who can solve my grade appeal, so I asked student conduct to message him for me. WVU student conduct has failed to be understanding toward my frustration for somebody not being accommodated. Failed to be understanding, and that would de-escalate situations like this that arise. So if you're understanding towards frustration towards someone not being accommodated, then it would de-escalate situations, and we probably wouldn't be in this situation. And I feel discriminated against due to my last name, and this could be proven with email analytics. And another thing on de-escalating situations, I feel like student conduct failed to be understanding towards frustration for someone not being accommodated, and it would de-escalate situations like this that arise. I feel like I forgot my next point on that. I'll try to think of it before the end of this video. I have a pet and will be living out of my car and will have to move to Tashkent in 2022 instead of 2021 if this interim suspension isn't appealed immediately. I've spoken to Mr. Kasperwitz, the head of the Caruth Center for Psychological and Psychiatric Services, so I can do 12 appointments, which is the limit I'm allowed, in handling people who provoke negative reactions out of me. So I'm calling the Caruth Center tomorrow, so that's today, and those are the measures I'm taking, and that should help my appeal. I would never send a student to student conduct if they are frustrated for not being accommodated. This is disgusting, and it wastes my time. I've not lied about any of this. I want there to be statutes put in place on all WVU employees to prevent situations like this from happening. This may have been related to the thing I forgot, especially if you have received similar stories or do in the future. There's also a groundskeeper at WVU Roads and Grounds in spring 2019, and we do not have jurisdiction to clean in front of houses with Greek letters on them. There was a riot, and there was trash that we could not clean up, and it stayed there from Thursday to Tuesday before the city cleaned it up. Thursday to Tuesday, with like 70 pieces of garbage in one bush. And I feel it's my job to point that out. I do not think these people are aware that the grounds crew does not have jurisdiction in front of those buildings. We have supervisors. I don't think they're aware of it. We have supervisors that ride around with us to make sure of it, to make sure we stick to our jurisdictions. Just like you can use your reputability as WVU student organizations, send those clubs a message at the beginning of the year to accommodate students seeking meeting times and to be added to email lists in the very first response, You can use your reputability as WVU fraternities and sororities to put a note on the mailbox at the beginning of the semester and ask politely to keep their property clean because they're not affiliated with the university. We don't order them, but we could ask politely and use our reputability as WVU fraternities and sororities, ask them to keep their property clean, informing them the ground crew situation. If I miss one class, I will not get an A. This is very urgent. I feel I've proven that I did not deserve to be sent to student conduct every time I was reported because I was a victim, and I will lose respect for myself if I allow someone to get away with having their. I would lose respect for myself if I allowed someone to get away with having their way with me. I would never succumb to this, as I would focus on accommodating people as best I can while de-escalating situations by being understanding the one's frustration due to a lack of accommodation, or worse. I would like to reiterate that I will be seeking therapy for the very first time in my life at the Caruth Center. I will be sending that email after I send my reworded FAFSA appeal to student conduct, so I need to do that today, to relay to the Mountaineer Hub for the committee on my reworded situation, because I can't even contact the Mountaineer Hub, even though it's not a one person directly, to check on my FAFSA appeal until my interim appeal is accepted. I have to go through student conduct for everything. I was just kicked out of my class because I showed up to it thinking the teacher wasn't aware of my situation. So I'm missing a class currently, a week, and yeah, I'll go over it in a second. Even though I've typed all this out professionally, making it a good finalized complaint paper I can submit, and a good transcript for a video on my YouTube channel, where I have many complaint videos, I'm not glad that this happened, and I'm not fond of the fact that these situations are wasting your time or the time of the employees of student conduct. On top of this, I will be taking a professional writing course in the next fall. Professional writing. I'm already signed up for FAFSA and my VA and my 18 credits for the fall. So hopefully the combination of my therapy and my professional writing course will teach me ways of handling these situations. And so there's isn't any way to interpret my emails as harassment, even if I interpret theirs as subtle harassment, which I will not succumb to either. I have an exam on Friday for both my 3-week courses. I'm not trying to miss more than a day if my appeal is acceptable. I forgot to include that I learned not to harass anyone on campus for the first one, learned I'm accountable outside of campus on the second one, and learned that harassment was due to another person's point of view this time. I felt subtly harassed by all these people, by the way. I did solve one thing as a WVU student. WVU financial aid mobile site said 304-293-1WVU, and you would click on it on the mobile site, and it would call 304-293 something 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 semicolon, and it didn't work. So like if you type in an email 304-293-1WVU, and then you send the email and you check it on your phone and you click it, it's going to say something semicolon. So they fixed it and it's clickable. That's something that has been fixed, saving time for students in the future. I will not retaliate from this instant onward. I will simply record the instance and make a video about it or submit it as a complaint so I feel better, like I'm not letting anybody have their way with me. Thanks. P.S. Just found a better way to word the measures I'm going to take in the future. Whenever I am not being accommodated, I'm going to hang up, accept that my time is being wasted. I will not complain to the person directly. Instead, I will put in the words and make a video about it or file a complaint as a formal complaint. I will cease communication immediately with someone who's not accommodating me. Additionally, I took an hour-long harassment online course last time. This one's very important. Took an hour-long harassment online course last time. I found out that I'm protected from retaliation for complaining about any entity. Took an hour-long online harassment course last time, and I found out that I'm protected from retaliation for complaining about any entity. Protected from retaliation for complaining about any entity, which is why I was sent to student conduct every single time I have been. And that's something that's part of WVU terms, protected from retaliation for complaining about any entity. and that's something that should be federal.